and welcome to this webinar on how to manage and resolve conflicts. My name is Johanna Scholzo. I'm a business psychologist at Thrive, and with me I have Alyssa, who is also a business psychologist. Hi, Alyssa.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.
Great. So just a few housekeeping things. So we will record this session and it will take around 50 minutes. So if you have any questions or experiences which you would like to share with other attendees or with us, please feel free to write them in the Q&A or in the chat function, and we will either come back to it in the end or during the webinar. All right, so conflict is inevitable part of our relationship, right? So whether it's at home or at work, we're just bound to run into a situation which you and another person or another team member don't agree on, or we have this issue, diverging issues, interests, plans, goals, problems, which we have to solve, or yeah, two parties striving for the same thing, right? So this competing issue. So I'm sure you all know that, you know, the feeling that conflicts can trigger our deepest emotions, right? So just watching two young children battle over the same toy filled with this sheer rage, and they each grab at the toy and each other until one of them prevails or the toy breaks, right? So such conflicts set the stage for all of our adult struggles. So the words obviously change or become more sophisticated, but the underlying feeling and the emotions which we experience during these conflicts remain strikingly similar. So today we will discuss some key aspects of conflict, different types and views on conflict, the process which lies behind it, and what outcomes they can have as well. So we will look both at the organizational level and how to best manage and resolve conflicts there, as well as on the individual level, which Alyssa will talk about, and how you can best manage conflicts with stress management, emotional awareness, and some practical tips. So yeah, we will touch on both. So at the end of the session, you will be able to explain those different approaches towards a conflict, identify different conflict types, and describe different ways and skills for how you can manage and resolve those conflicts. So first, we will have a look at some key aspects of conflicts. So as you can see on the slide, there are some key aspects which we will discuss in more details during the webinar as well. So if you feel like this is something I want to know more about, please wait. We will touch on that later for sure. If not, let us know. So the first point is that a conflict is more than just a disagreement, right? So it's a situation in which one or both parties really perceive this threat, whether this threat might be real or not, but it's the perception of it, right? So the feeling of a threat that someone, yeah, just for example, like you feel that your personal values or goals are threatened from the other party. So yeah, this is one aspect. Then a conflict is a process which takes some time to develop and passes through several stages, and I will explain this with more detailed steps in a bit. But yeah, another thing is that conflicts continue to fester when ignored. So because conflicts involve this perceived threat to our well-being and survival, they stay with us until we really face and resolve them, right? So yeah, this is something we probably all experienced before. And we respond to conflicts based on our perception of the situation. So not necessarily to an objective review or the facts, right? So everything which we perceive is influenced and shaped by our life experiences, by our culture, values, beliefs, and yeah, this is something to keep in mind. So it's all about this perception, and it's different for everyone. We never have the same perception of something because we all have those different backgrounds, different experiences. And then conflict triggers really strong emotions. And for so just think about, like, they can cause strong feelings of anger or being hurt by the other person. So the thing is that if you aren't able to identify your emotions or able to manage them in times of stress, you won't be really able to resolve those conflicts successfully. So yeah, we will come to that later, especially in the individual part. And some great things about conflicts are opportunities to grow. They, when you're able to resolve a conflict in a relationship, it builds this trust between each other, right? And you can feel secure knowing your relationship can survive challenges and disagreements, and that you don't have to feel this threat or be threatened by something or someone. And lastly, conflicts can also help us to be more productive sometimes, as our full attention is really focused on this matter or the task behind it, and it allows us to challenge ourselves even more. So this brings me to different types of conflicts. So as you might recognize, that we have different ones, and the first one is the interpersonal conflict, where you probably all have a story to tell, for example, with a friend, colleague, or partner. But we can also have this intrapersonal conflicts, right? So for example, when you're divided between an activity that leads us to a goal or leads you to a goal, but stands against your own personal values and policy, for example, or when you have this work and family conflict. So this is something which happens internally, right? And then we also have the intra-group and intergroup conflict. So the former is a conflict within a group, and the latter are conflicts between groups, teams, or even maybe organizations. So organizational conflicts can be this disagreement between or within groups, and here groups could be workers, it could be worker unions, or management itself maybe. And as you might have experienced yourself, organizational conflicts are quite common in the workplace, because people always have these divergent views or various issues, interests, ideologies, goals, or just different aspirations, right? So this brings me to how we view conflicts or different perspectives on conflict. And first, I would like to ask you 2 poll questions, and they're more for us to get an idea how you personally feel about conflicts in your past, like what have you experienced for yourself. So just to get a bit of like your own experiences in here. So the first question is, in general, would you say that conflict is something positive or negative for yourself?
We have around 60% of people who answered, so I'm just going to leave a few more seconds to give everyone the chance to contribute.
Great. Yeah, it's quite interesting to see, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for most of us for now, for those who voted, conflicts are something negative, right? Because we often, as I mentioned before, perceive it as something harmful or threatening, and often ending in a more like a deeper conflict maybe, or a long-lasting split of relationship, which would be then the really negative outcome. So yeah, it's quite interesting to see. A few of you said positive, and then some other ratings. Great. Okay, thank you. We have another one actually. So this one is a bit more specific now. So I would like to ask you, what comes to your mind when you think about conflicts? Is it something where you feel like it's helpful, dysfunctional, destructive, constructive maybe, or it depends on its management, or something completely different which you feel is missing here?
We're at around 50% of people who answered.
Okay, great. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, nice. Most of you, 61%, said it depends on its management. And we will come back to that later, but this is already nice to see that you have this perception, and I completely agree here. So yeah, but we will come later to that. Just good to know what you're feeling and thinking about conflicts. Thank you. So we can see and evaluate conflicts from different perspectives, right? The traditional view says that conflicts are generally destructive, and they distract us. They reduce our productivity and should be completely avoided by all means, because they're just, yeah, they're destructive in a way. Then there's this interactionist view. So here conflicts offer a place for discussion and allow us to solve problems together. So, you know, sometimes we need this new approach to a goal or task, and having this disagreement might open the floor for innovation and creativity, as well as change maybe. So this view still agrees with having functional and dysfunctional conflicts. But conflicts might be dysfunctional if someone, for example, experiences role ambiguity, or at work, if there's a relationship conflict where the trigger is not work related, but about individual differences or values, for example. So yeah, quite interesting view as well. And then lastly, we have this resolution focused view, which this view says that conflicts are constructive dependent on the tools or strategy we use. So the instrument for change. And this view perceives conflict as not productive, but as something that needs a functional resolution. So yeah, some different perspectives here. And this brings me to conflict being a process which I talked about before. So conflict is a dynamic process that does not appear suddenly, but takes time. Some time to develop and passes through several stages. So it is the result from this tension in interpersonal interactions or between team members because of those real or perceived differences. And research has found that there are 5 stages of conflict. So the first stage is being the identification of a potential opposition. So the second stage is the cognition and personalization. So how do we think about the situation, or what does that mean to us personally? And the third stage is the intention. So this is where the individual identify how they would like to approach or resolve the conflict. And this then leads to a certain type of behavior, which is stage 4. And stage 5 is the outcome of everything. So this is and that has this conflict lead to a positive outcome like increased communication or creativity, or negative outcomes such as, for example, hostility. So if we think about conflict as a process and identify the stages, we are able to think about it in a more practical way and reduce the likelihood of emotions getting the better of us. So importantly, we need to remember that we have a choice of what our intentions are, which is stage 3, and what behavior we choose to portray, as this can lead to this specific outcome, as I mentioned before. And I will talk a little bit more about the different intentions and conflict resolutions later. Because yeah, depending on the situation, we may choose to use as a different approach, right? So if the appropriate conflict resolution style is used, it can result in positive outcomes such as acceptance of diversity or heterogeneity, open discussions, and increased creativity. So many actually good outcomes, right? So obviously, you might experience that at work, but we have different organizational sources of conflict, and you can probably think of various sources. It's all about the structure and dynamic here, which refers to stage 1 in the process, which we just discussed. So the source of conflict could include goal incompatibility, there's resources like money, or when we are interdependent, like for example in shift work, right, where the next shift has to cope for previous mistakes. And organizational conflicts may also develop when being faced with uncertainty, or when our efforts do not reflect the appropriate reward we receive, or maybe not received at all. So this is something where conflicts might origin as well. And other reasons why we have conflicts might also be that we simply want to demonstrate that we are superior to someone or to get rid of them. And sometimes there may not be any conscious goal at all, right? So we also find ourselves easily in conflicts if we are in an emotional state, so where we are stressed or feel threatened by something, like the other teammate, for example, taking the position we so badly aim for. So yeah, different sources, and you probably all have your own ones, but some examples just here. And then we have those intentions to react. Researchers found that we have these different intentions to react, which are represented in the table on the slide. So it refers to the third stage of the process model, and depending on the goal level and the relationship we have with the other person or part, we might decide to either compete, to collaborate, avoid, or accommodate and compromise. So different intentions here. And yeah, just let me explain this in a bit more detail. So if you, for example, have no relationship with the other person and not a strong goal in your mind or something you really want to do, you would probably just avoid the person and the whole situation. So this might be an intention which you set then. And if the relationship was actually strong with the same goal level, you decide to accommodate, to keep up the good relationship you have with each other. But on the other hand, like if you don't share a strong relationship with the other, but you have a high goal ambition, then you would easily decide to compete with the other person or party. And yeah, if you have a strong relationship with the other person as well as have this high goal ambition, you would be probably more likely to collaborate with the other person to just get there where you want to, right? And yeah, in the middle, being medium on everything, you might decide to compromise. So this sounds all quite theoretical, I see that, but think about some of your last conflicts with someone at work or someone else, and you might really start to recognize some patterns, or that you set intentions based on the aspects I just outlined here. So yeah, just keep that in mind and reflect on that maybe later on, or maybe there's an example you can know right now of. This brings me then to this constructive conflicts at work. So actually conflicts can be very helpful sometimes, right? So for example, in organizational settings, we can differentiate between two broader types of conflicts. So one is the more cognitive one, and the other one is the affective conflict. And these cognitive conflicts are when people really openly express differences, challenge underlying assumptions. So these conflicts are more the constructive in various ways, as they really allow for the detection of weakness, for example, and this creativity, innovation needed, for example, for new ideas or solutions to a problem. On the other hand, we have those more affective conflicts which involve those strong emotions, which we all know, right? So they often happen between two people, and as you can imagine, they often lead to negative outcomes and are generally almost always dysfunctional in a work setting. So here the responsibility of the leaders is to foster these more cognitive and constructive conflicts. So for example, this could be done by establishing norms or structuring conversations that make debates the rule rather than exceptions. So this might sound simple, but there are some really basic rules which you could implement into conversations or meetings, where you provide those safe environments for open communication and debate. And so you might want to think about encouraging out of the box suggestions, no blaming, allowing the other person to finish what they wanted to say. So really allowing everyone to say until they're done, and speak until they're done. And this will allow people to feel more safe and less threatened, and really foster these debates, which are more cognitive, which we want in organizational settings. Yeah, I mean, this is quite self-explanatory, but I think it's just good to see again how different outcomes of conflicts can look like. And if we think about the general downs and upsides of conflicts, we can now really differentiate between positive and negative outcomes. And I'm sure you all know that conflict can trigger these strong emotions, as we spoke about, but can also lead to hard feelings, disappointment, and yeah, just general discomfort maybe. And at work, it may result in lack of cooperation, focusing our entire attention to the conflict, and may distort the judgment we make. And so when handled in an unhealthy manner, it can cause kind of those resentments, breakups, or just rifts, and conflicts may also escalate to mobbing and workplace bullying, or just hostility and incivility. So just something where if we don't manage it right, it can get really bad, to say simple. And when handled correctly, conflict can actually benefit individuals and organizations by providing stronger and more resilient working relationships and improving this creative output, generating innovative solutions. And it will also increase your understanding of the other person and or the other team, and builds trust, and just strengthens your relationship. So this brings me to different conflict resolution strategies. And conflict resolution processes, a resolution process, are aimed at ending conflict. And while conflict management, for example, also includes escalation, conflict resolution searches for a way of ending a conflict. So you can see in a table on the slide that research recommends applying different strategies in work settings, including confrontation or collaborating, forcing, competing, smoothing, accommodating, withdrawing, avoiding, and compromising, depending on the complexity of the issue, the available time, the power of parties, as well as if there's a need for a long-term solution or a short-term solution right now, for example, and the importance of the issue. And so for example, like collaboration might be really helpful if the conflict is about a highly complex issue which requires discussion of opinions and the commitment really of parties involved. Although collaboration as a conflict solving style is considered to be really the most functional option, in certain circumstances it might be destructive, as for example, if we think about if the issue needs to be resolved quickly, if there needs to be a solution right now, or when the other party lacks the skills required to solve the problem. So you can see the different when to use and when not to use options there, which you can later see as well, because we will share the slides with you as well. But yeah, so then the next thing is the competition. So competition should be used if there's a lack of time. So when issues are insignificant, or when other parties lack the expertise. So let's think of an example. If your team receives a task with a tight deadline that's due in 2 hours, and you know you won't have the time to brainstorm ideas, but have enough knowledge or expertise to complete the task yourself, you might make this executive decision to work on it by yourself without any input from anyone else in order to meet really this deadline. And this, on the other hand, would not work as a long-term strategy, right? Or when the conflict is about a highly complex issue. So here's something to keep in mind about competition. Then we have accommodation, which might work best when the issue isn't really relevant for you, or when you lack the required knowledge to the issue at hand, which is fine, but it's a strategy here. And it could also be that you for example have a conflict with a colleague where you have this give and take agreement on, you know that there will be another time when your colleague will accommodate your opinion or your goals. So this might be then a good strategy. And then there is avoidance. So when you can easily avoid things and they can have their positive and negative effects. So let's think about that. So you should avoid the conflict if there's really no need to be bothered by this. For example, when a colleague forgot to bring you coffee, or just, yeah, simple things where you actually just should avoid it and not think too much about it, because, yeah, it does not have a purpose at all. It would also help to avoid the whole situation if the conflict got so heated up that everyone involved first should cool off before having another discussion. So if you're completely stressed and emotional, it might not be the best option in a work setting to sit down in the moment and to think about the issue, but maybe to take some steps back, maybe go for a walk, do some calming exercises, and then you can all come back together and have a bit more cooled off atmosphere. So this strategy shouldn't be a long-term solution, though. You might know that consequences of unresolved conflicts here. So depending on how long you avoid the situation, it might not be good, right? And lastly, there's compromise. So sometimes you just cannot align your goals with someone in your team, or when you need to find this compromise, especially if you need to come to a solution in a short time. And this, however, might not be the best solution if you have a conflict with your boss, or when you need to find a long-term solution, right? So thinking about boss relationship, obviously your boss is your boss, right? There's a different level of hierarchy. So this might then not work as a strategy. So you can see that there are various strategies which you can use depending on various factors we just touched on. So next time you have this conflict, for example, in your team, try to question these factors and choose the appropriate strategy there. And if solved in the right way, as said before, conflicts can have multiple great benefits like innovation, creativity, increased group communication, cohesion, and they really allow us to focus focus ourselves with greater energy on the task. And coming back to the views on conflict, which we discussed before, and the question if conflicts are something positive or negative, we can answer this now by saying that conflicts are neither dysfunctional or functional, as it really depends all on how we manage them, right? So this would be my response to the questions from above. And I will hand over now to Elissa, who will go more into the individual aspects now and the individual skills.
Thank you, Johanna. Yeah, so I'm just going to touch upon how individual skills can help us to resolve conflicts. So no focus on organizational level now. Now we're focusing internally on our own skills. So usually when we're faced with conflict, our stress levels are elevated and we start to feel those fight, flight, or freeze symptoms, such as that increased heart rate and the shallow breathing. When we're in this state, we often let these basic instincts and emotion take over because we feel threatened in some type of way, and this could really cloud our judgment. So it can be difficult to take a step back and consider all the aspects of this conflict or work through it systematically in the moment. However, this is something that can be learned and we will get better at in time, of course. So by building our emotional awareness and using relaxation exercises such as calm breathing, we can bring our body back to a calm state, helping us to think clearer in the moment so that we can come up with constructive resolutions to the conflict that we are currently facing. Sometimes it may be hard for us to put into words what we are actually feeling. So before acting upon our impulses, we need to take a deep breath and choose how we can best communicate our point of view or what is bothering us in the moment. So if we learn these skills, we start to show healthy conflict responses, such as acknowledging and accepting the other point of view, choosing the right words to express ourselves while remaining calm and respectful towards the other person, being ready to move past the conflict and not holding on to any grudge, as well as finding a common ground to be able to resolve this conflict. Many might also be fearful to address conflict and try to avoid it, thinking that it will just disappear and maybe solve the problem by itself. However, this could make it even worse in the end, and we might be holding on to these negative feelings that are not being resolved, and misunderstandings might come about. So the ability to successfully resolve conflict really depends on your ability to manage stress quickly while remaining alert and calm at the same time. So by staying calm, you can accurately read and interpret verbal and nonverbal communication. And this can be done by learning techniques such as calm breathing and meditation. It's also important to have emotional self-awareness to identify our emotional state and know how it can affect our behavior, then actively altering it to bring about helpful emotions and constructive behaviors. And this can be done through learning cognitive behavioral therapy skills. So this helps you to communicate your needs without you feeling threatened or being threatening to others or intimidating to others, or punishing others during conflict. So being able to stay calm and alert is the main aspect of conflict resolution. Active listening is also a useful skill where you pay attention to the feelings being expressed as well as the spoken words of others, making a conscious effort to hear and try to understand their point of view as well. So being able to manage and relieve stress in the moment is the key to staying balanced, focused, and in control. No matter what challenges you face, if you don't know how to stay centered and in control of yourself, you will become overwhelmed in the conflict situation and unable to respond in healthy ways. High levels of stress can cause us to feel this tenseness, and it can make us feel easily irritated. And we might find ourselves getting angry at things that usually don't faze us. Or sometimes we end up letting out our anger and on other people, even though they had nothing to do with the situation that made us feel stressed or upset. These are really unhealthy ways to deal with stress and can negatively impact our relationships. During this pandemic, research has found that a lot of people felt that their close relationships had been damaged, and this might be due to the increased levels of stress that we've experienced during these times. Stress interferes with our ability to resolve conflict by limiting your ability to accurately read other people's nonverbal communication, hear what other people are really saying, be aware of your own feelings, and be in touch with your deep-rooted needs and communicate your needs clearly and effectively. So as said before, when we often let our emotions really cloud our judgment, so leading us to misunderstand situations or negatively interpret other people's intentions, even though they might have not been negative whatsoever. So this can really result in miscommunication, and if we do not clear this up, we might start to ruminate and let negative thoughts guide our mood and behavior. One of the main reasons we might feel stressed is because we feel that we are lacking of the resources to be able to deal with the situation. This could be emotional resources, social resources, maybe financial resources, or any resources that would help us to feel more able and to cope with the situation that is making us feel uneasy or stressed and resulting in this conflict. Understanding what resources we lack helps us to address what we need in order to cope with stressful situations in a more resilient way. Often, or maybe one of the ways we can increase our emotional and psychological resources is by learning and using psychological coping strategies such as mentioned before, cognitive behavioral therapy and those relaxation exercises. Again, deep muscle relaxation, calm breathing, meditation, all of those. So CBT helps us to identify those negative or unhelpful thoughts that we might be having about a particular situation and change them to more helpful ones with to be able to think more constructively and helpful to ourselves as well. While relaxation exercises help us to manage those fight, flight, or freeze symptoms that I mentioned before when we feel threatened. So this could help also to relieve the stress that we are feeling in the moment. So emotional awareness is basically consciousness of your moment-to-moment emotional experience. It is the key to understanding yourself and others as well. If you don't know or why you feel a certain way, you won't be able to, of course, communicate effectively or resolve the conflict in the end. So although knowing your own feelings may sound quite simple, many people ignore or try to sedate strong emotions like anger, sadness, and fear. So your ability to handle conflict, however, depends on being connected to those feelings. If you're afraid of strong emotions, or if you insist on finding solutions that are strictly rational, your ability to face and resolve differences will be quite limited. So, a good way to understand our emotions better is by trying to work through them in a systematic way, which Johanna was trying to explain before when you think of different conflicts and what management strategy would be most appropriate. So, that is a very systematic way of working through them. So, first, you identify the situation, what is happening in the moment, or what happened to make you change your emotional state. Then, identify the emotion. Is it anger? Is it sadness? Is it frustration? What exactly are you feeling? Then, identify the thoughts you are having about the situation or the person that you're in conflict with. Are these thoughts maybe fueling the emotions that you're experiencing? And what is your behavior and your reaction? Are you able to calmly state your point of view, or are emotions guiding your reaction? Are your basic instincts kicking in? So, some reasons why emotional awareness is an important part of conflict resolution is because it helps you to really understand what is troubling other people, also understand yourself, including what is troubling you, stay motivated until the conflict is completely resolved, communicate clearly and effectively, as well as have some sort of interest and influence on others as well, because you're able to communicate clearly and bring your point across as well. So, a good way to build this emotional self awareness and to focus on staying in the present moment is through practicing meditation. Meditation and mindfulness really enhances your emotional and self regulation abilities, and troubling feelings can be really better understood and emotions are quieted. Meditators have the ability to be calm and alert at the same time, helping us to be more effective at problem solving and making constructive, helpful decisions for ourselves, even when we're going through negative or traumatizing or even stressful situations. So you can ensure that the process of managing and resolving conflict is as positive as possible by keeping to these following points, by having these points in mind, basically. So make conflict resolution the priority. So rather than winning or being right, maintaining and strengthening the relationship rather than having the goal to win the argument. That should be your first priority, is just to strengthen the relationship. So be respectful of the other person and their viewpoint. Focus on the present. This can be done again through attention training and meditation. So if you're holding on to grudges based on past conflicts, your ability to see the reality of the current situation will be impaired. So rather than looking to the past and assigning blame, focus on what you can do in the here and now to solve this problem that you're facing in this moment. Don't let the past influence what's happening now. So then also, of course, pick your battles. Conflicts can be draining emotionally and even physically. So it's important to consider whether the issue is really worth your time and energy at this point. And be willing to forgive. So resolving conflict is impossible if you're unwilling or unable to forgive others. And resolution really lies in releasing the urge to punish others. And again, showing that you're right and they're wrong. So trying to release that basic urge. This can all like only sever bonds or deplete and drain your life in the end if that is your focus of every single conflict. And know when to let something go and just find acceptance. So if you can't come to an agreement and you're hitting a wall, agree to disagree. It takes two people to keep an argument going, of course. If a conflict is going nowhere, you can choose to disengage and move on and see how that makes you feel afterwards as well. But of course, as Johanna had said, it really depends on the issue that is at hand as well, because if it's a very important issue that needs to be addressed, sometimes it might be time for you to focus and use more of your energy in order to resolve this conflict. And this again then leads to the question, is it worth the fight, and picking your battles. So yeah, that brings us to the end of the webinar. I hope it made sense to you. We started off with a bit of a organizational conflict and how to address that, and how to systematically categorize conflicts and their resolutions, to then covering more individual skills and emotional awareness and skills that you can, psychological skills that you can build in order to help you resolve your conflicts better in the future.
Great.
So yeah.
Thank you. We have one question here, someone who is speaking about an ongoing conflict, and the opposite party, in this case senior management, remains in the aggressive conflict. Should you change approach to avoidance? And I think it depends obviously a bit on the background of the conflict and what level you are, if you're management as well, if you have the similar hierarchy level, or if it's someone higher in the ladder. But just think about the aspects we talked about before. Sometimes, yes, if the other party or if the whole situation is quite hot in the moment, right, and everyone is really aggressive and maybe has those strong emotions, it can help to avoid things for a while. But if you feel like the issue is quite important, it might make sense to bring it up later and then move on to the more collaborative stage of strategy, right? So when you really want to talk about it again, and when this is an important issue where you need the commitment of them, and where you want to find a long-term strategy. But yeah, as I said, it depends a bit, right? So maybe think about those aspects on the table which we talked about before, and it depends on how urgent the matter is, and maybe I think it might be a good strategy to first let it cool off a bit, in terms of if the issue isn't that urgent right now, to allow everyone to settle down a bit and to let the situation be a bit more calmer and more rational then.
Yeah, and also you can consider if it's worth it maybe to bypass this individual who is showing this aggression. Maybe there's somebody else that you can approach who will help you to get to your goal or resolve some sort of conflict, so that you're able to come to a more constructive agreement altogether at the same time. So try looking for other resolutions as well, not just focusing on that one person.
We will share the slides later with you, and they will also be accessible, the whole recording, on our YouTube channel. But yeah, you will also receive them later via email. Great. Any other questions?
How do you manage someone who blames others and doesn't seem to take any responsibility themselves?
Yeah, is this more from an individual perspective, or is it something which you experienced in an organization? Because I think, yeah, might make a difference there. But generally, I think having this emotional awareness for yourself will also help you to understand the other person. Why is he blaming you? Why is the other person maybe threatened by something? Try to understand the other person as best as possible, and then maybe have this collaborative approach where you sit together, have this conversation, and try to understand each other's opinions, and try to make it as a kind of like more debate without having those blames. And if you think about like a meeting setting, maybe it helps really, as I said before, to implement those rules where you really have it as a golden rule to not blame someone, because yeah, it often isn't really helpful, right? And it's just having those basic rules allow the team conversation then to be like, no, this is not what constructive here. Let's make it more cognitive, right? Let's stick to the rules we have for meeting to get to the outcome where we want to be.
Yeah, agreed with that. Yeah, making sure that you keep to constructive communication between you and the other person, even when it seems like there is that person might be blaming you or emotionally draining you out. Trying to do those breathing exercises, do some relaxation techniques, calm yourself down, because if at least one person is able to remain calm in the situation as well, and able to understand and explain to the other person constructively how they are feeling, then it can help to understand why this person might be blaming you for something that might not even be your fault. But yeah, try to remain calm and stay with a cognitive approach rather than affective approach. How do you manage serious and prolonged bullying?
We have an upcoming bullying and mobbing webinar in the next month, which you might find interesting. But I think generally, if you say this is something serious and taking for a long time, it really helps to bring a third party in there. So maybe either HR or your line manager to have this third objective party who can help you with that issue. Because yeah, if it gets ignored, it gets worse and worse, right? And it can help to bring someone from a higher level in to support you with that matter.
Yeah, bullying and mobbing should always be addressed. And if there's no one within the organization or within, because okay, I'm taking this as like a problem within a work setting, within an organizational setting. So if there's no one you can approach within the organization, then you might have to go into whistleblowing and looking outside of the organization in order to resolve this or get away from it.
Then there's one, sometimes conflict cannot be resolved if the line manager cannot deal personally with conflict easily. Never an easy topic to cover. Yes, definitely. And yeah, as said before, sometimes it just helps to either avoid the whole situation if it's actually not that relevant, or if you find a way to accommodate the other opinion. It depends, right? It depends on the urgency of the matter, how important it is for you, and if the other person struggles with that, it can help to have this again, this conversation, this cognitive conversation about the matter, where you ask the other person, can we sit down for a bit? I want to solve this more as a conversation. Can we just discuss this and this and this? And trying to stay really calm in that time. So set yourself a time where you're really calm and not stressed in the moment, because then, yeah, it can get really emotional for you as well, right? So at least having one party to staying calm can help here again to have this like active listening as well, to kind of get the other person and maybe help them to feel not as threatened. Maybe the other person feels threatened, right? So that they see they don't have to have a reason to feel that they have to defend themselves or have to blame or have to just handle the conflict in a way that they have to show their superior. But maybe if they realize it's fine, they can easily come to you can come to a collaborative conclusion here, or to find a solution together.
Yeah. And it's sometimes also like helpful if you set yourself an agenda and write exactly what is bothering you and what you want to resolve, and come up with ideas yourself of how you would like to resolve them. So come with a solution to the discussion, so that it shows that you're there for a solution. You're not there just to have a conflict or just to fight. Come with a solution as well.
Yeah, well, that's a good point.
How do you let the person know they have done something wrong so it doesn't keep happening without them taking offense? Yeah, so again, this links back to the cognitive rather than affective communication. So keeping things calm, making sure that the way you phrase what you're saying is very is not attacking the individual, so saying like you did this wrong, more like saying maybe this could have been done differently, or I like think that this approach might have worked out better, or maybe we can work on this together to help you deal with the mistake or doing something wrong, maybe to help you deal with it in the right way that you might think. But in the end, of course, that's also personal opinion, what is right and what is wrong. So needs to be very sensitive approach as well to that. But just saying, but not blaming the other person, not saying you did this and you did that, just saying maybe we can do it differently next time, and again being resolution focused.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I think making it as a norm as well, right? It can be also like that you have those regular one-to-ones where you just use the time as well to, was there something we need to discuss, in a way that you normalize the whole thing about, like, it doesn't always need to be about a conflict, but that you have those ongoing conversations. If it's about like something which happened before, maybe a mistake, how can you cope with it in the future? How can you resolve it maybe better in the future? Just having those conversations where the other person doesn't feel threatened. And I think, yeah, blaming is a key word Alyssa mentioned before, which should be avoided in all means.
How do you resolve an old conflict that has resulted in the two parties not speaking to each other?
I think it depends again, right, on the setting, but generally it's always helpful to just do the first step, have this plan, what you want to say, what you want to achieve with the conversation, and having really thought about it before, and then going to the other person, maybe asking them if you can have a 30 minutes chat with them, just to check in again, and maybe talk about the issue, to maybe find a new approach to it. And if you have this cooled off phase behind you, maybe the issue isn't that emotionally anymore, so you might have a chance to find a compromise together, or to find a solution here which works both for you, right? So maybe this is an approach which will help here.
Yeah, so there's obviously like a reason, like Johanna said, that the parties are not speaking to each other anymore, because they saw themselves that they needed to have this cool off between each other, this emotional distance between each other, because I guess they saw that it wasn't getting anywhere anymore, the conflict. So yeah, now it's time to think about it more practically, and start with the collaboration and the communication, or compromising and understanding the two viewpoints, because avoidance is not a long-term strategy that should be used.
Great. I think we run to the end of the session. It was really great, and I thank you for the interactive questions, and I hope you enjoyed it, and we hope to see you soon again. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.